I'm Craig Hummer. I've been a sports commentator for 25 years and covered over 60 different sports. I've always been fascinated by what makes athletes and leaders tick, as well as what propels them to greatness. Welcome to Motiv8'd.
Well, I've been looking forward to this podcast for a long time because even though I've covered over 60 different sports, auto racing is not a world that I know very well. So by the end of this, we're going to be introduced to a lot of integral characters in the sport of auto racing. So let's get right to it with my first three guests. Brad McCall, the owner of Round3Racing, joined, of course, by, on our left on screen, Lynn Kecho, as well as Karen Salvaggio from ShiftUpNow. Brad, I want to start with you right there in the middle. Talk about this partnership between your two groups and what the ultimate goal is for it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us, first of all. And we are a auto racing team. We compete in an endurance series called the World Racing League, which is endurance car races from between 7 and 24 hours. And as you can imagine, in a race that's as long as 24 hours, you can't use just one driver. So we have multiple drivers in a car, and it really is a team. It's a team sport from the crew to the drivers to everybody involved. And we run Porsche Boxsters. We have a 3-car team, and we enjoy having drivers of all variety, all different types of drivers in our car. We have professional drivers as well as experienced amateurs. And one thing that we discovered and are very excited about and here to talk to you about today is our partnership with ShiftUpNow. And ShiftUpNow is a group promoting women in motorsports. And for example, this weekend we have 9 drivers in our cars, 5 of them are women. And we are incredibly proud of that. And one thing we always talk about is when you pull that helmet on and you strap into a car, the car doesn't care if you're a man or a woman. The car doesn't know. And we're incredibly proud, and I'm very happy to say that today in qualifying, 2 of our cars qualified first and second, and the fast drivers in both of those cars are both women. So it's very
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. They do an incredible job. And I'm very happy to introduce ShiftUpNow. I have Lynn and Karen here. I'd like them both to talk about what ShiftUpNow is and how they're promoting women in motorsports. And I just thank them so much for the partnership that we have with them. And I'm so excited to move forward with them. Lynn?
Great. Thanks a lot, Brad. I appreciate that. And thanks again for having us in your podcast. We're really excited. I started ShiftUpNow in 2016, and we are a collective of female race car drivers. We really started this in order to promote courage and confidence in girls and women. I was joined in 2017 by my partner, Karen Salvaggio, and she brings a lot of racing experience to what was almost no racing experience at all for me. 2016 was my very first race, which I did actually on my 56th birthday. And I had a business sense, and I had this idea of using racing to inspire confidence and courage. And so I was lucky enough to be joined by somebody who had many, many years of racing experience. And together we've been able to form a collective of, as Brad said, everything from seasoned amateurs to top of the world professional race car drivers. So I'm going to let Karen talk a little bit more about the racing program because she runs it.
Thank you. All right, so yeah, I'm the lucky dog that gets to run a racing program for some of the most talented women racers on the planet. And when I partnered with Lynn some years ago, I have to be honest with you, when she was first introduced to me, and she was introduced to me as somebody that didn't know anything about the sport much, you know, and she was new, and I'm thinking she was going to go do this 25-hour race, and I was like, do you really know what you're talking about? But once you're in her airspace for a while, you find out how passionate she is, and when she's driven to do something, it's going to happen. And that connected with me a lot. I've been doing motorsports. I'm in my 36th year of doing it. I've run my own teams for a long time, driven a lot of race cars. But what I know about racing and motorsports in particular is that when you can master a car on track it provides you such amazing feedback to your own persona. You develop a sense of courage and confidence from just mastering it, and it's just you in the car. And there is no difference. It doesn't matter if it's a man or woman driving. You can go out and master these things, and women can do it, and men can do it. And when I partnered with Lynn, the whole idea of bringing together some of the world's greatest women race car drivers, and we like to call them female athletes. And honestly, we were lucky to partner with, Pippa Mann is the person who actually challenged Lynn. And if you do a little research on Pippa Mann, she's way up the food chain in the world. She's amazing. She's an IndyCar driver. She's a phenomenal person, and you're going to get to meet her in a minute too. But honestly, the whole collective has just been—it's been my honor to be part of it, and to be honored to be the race director and put us in seats. And I have to say, partnering with Round3Racing, with Bud and Brad, with Bud, listen to me, with Buzz and Brad, it's been one of the greatest things the greatest gift that's come to us, because we do believe that men and women working together, doesn't have to be an all-girl team or an all-guy team, but when we can bring the best together, that's when you really achieve excellence. So I've been very fortunate to partner with them. We're very grateful.
Thanks.
I'm going to have a follow-up question for each of you, and Karen, I'll start with you just to stay on your side, right, of the equation for a second. You mentioned collective, and I have done a little bit of research, and I was on your website earlier, and you do have an extensive list of drivers, from very young drivers, right? You can tell that part of this is almost like a mentorship program that you're trying to do in some ways. And so what are some of the characteristics that you look for in either young talent or someone that you want to try to mold into a leader?
Oh, that's great. And thank you so much for looking on the website, because you're right. We have some amazing young women and seasoned racers, and it is truly about mentorship. You've really picked up on that well. And what we look for in someone who wants to join us is someone who's as passionate about excellence, about developing their craft, about becoming the best of the best, and someone who's a great teammate, someone who can, like we say, play in the sandbox well with another. It's a team sport. And the person who's working on the car is just as important as the person driving the car and the person who's out in the pits. It really is not just one person. So we look for people who are great team players, but truly people that are passionate and are driven to seek the excellence invested in themselves. And honestly, we can train somebody how to drive the car, but to have that innate ability to be a great teammate and to really to be self-reflective and look at yourself and not blame the car or blame the people around you, but you're really looking for excellence. And we've been very fortunate to find a number of talented young ladies and women that have joined us. And that's really a common characteristic, I'd say, of all of them.
So Brad, that dovetails perfectly into the follow-up question I have for you. And right, I mean, it seems like in auto racing, maybe more so than most sports, I mean, partnerships, right? Whether it's with yourself, right, and ShiftUpNow, or it's with sponsors, or, these partnerships with drivers. I mean, talk about, from a sponsorship standpoint, where you see the landscape and how partnerships like yours with ShiftUpNow could be the way of the future.
Well, that's a fantastic question. And we were actually talking about this earlier today. The racing world has changed so much in the 40 years I've been around it. I grew up around the sport with my father racing. Back then, sponsors used to pay for the best driver. They would pay any amount of money for the best driver. Well, that has changed because the way that advertising happens has changed. We have some incredible sponsors. We have Shell Gasoline, they sponsor us. Cooper Tire sponsors us. And Motiv8'd, with help from Motiv8'd, we were able to make this happen this weekend. But what companies like Motiv8'd and Shell and Cooper Tire want to see is they're now looking at influencers. They're looking at people in social media who can get out there beyond just what they're doing on the racetrack, but see those people in real world situations who are creating a buzz, creating a crowd around them. And quite frankly, that's what the ShiftUpNow team has done incredibly well. Pippa is an absolute master, and she's taught me so much. I mean, I'm 45 years old, and Instagram isn't my strong suit, but she has helped me become so much better at it. And that's what you're going to see, I think, in racing moving forward, is that people who have skill, not only behind the wheel, but have skill to be an influencer, are going to get the attention of sponsors, and they're going to get opportunities that just in these last few years, they wouldn't have had those opportunities, because quite frankly, racers today, they either need to have a friend with a lot of money or have a lot of money themselves. And that's really harmed super talented drivers like the ones that we have in our car this weekend. That's harmed them from getting the opportunities in pro racing. And I think it's going to change, especially with social media and the advent of the influencer. So we were talking about that today, and I really think you're going to see that change the landscape of racing.
Lynn, follow-up question to you, and last one before we meet all three of your awesome drivers. Hopefully this is more of a personal story for you, and hopefully it's an interesting one, but you mentioned right off the top that you didn't get into this until much later in life. What made you decide that that was the time to all of a sudden enter the auto racing realm?
Well, I had a personal experience that wasn't great. I lost my husband, and I was trying to figure out what my life was going to be like. And I was in the real estate business, and I was at a charity luncheon, and some guy put up a day at the racetrack as a charity auction item. I bid on it, and I won it. And I did my first day at the racetrack, and I thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. And my friends were all talking about how much courage I had getting behind the wheel and, you know, driving on a racetrack. And I sort of blended the two things together and said, there's something to be done here, and I've got to be part of it. And I found endurance racing because I love the team aspect of it. You don't have to be the best driver, because if you're running the car to its fullest, at some point in a 24, 25-hour endurance race, the car will break if everybody's running it as fast as they can. And so having a mix of talent and people who can take care of the equipment, and then having the team spirit, as you'll see with the three drivers who are going to be interviewing next, it's a team, and they work together, and working together and getting one another in and out of the car at a pit stop. That really spoke to me, and so that's kind of what started it all.
Well, I mean, certainly thank you for sharing that. Obviously, out of that tough time was born something clearly that is now benefiting so many. So thank you very much for sharing that. Well, you guys have set the table perfectly. I can't wait to meet these three awesome female drivers that are the future.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Motiv8'd. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for more. This podcast has been produced by Motiv8 Entertainment, part of Motiv8 Sports Group.